I'm sure you've been following this potential scandal, could be fake scandal, about the ABC News whistleblower who's got this affidavit out claiming that ABC News coordinated with the Kamala Harris campaign prior to the debate. The guy says he notarized this document the day before the debate, that he sent a certified copy of it to the Speaker of the House, with whom we are in touch. They have not yet commented one way or the other, but at the Speaker of the House's office, they're going to have tons of mail to go through, and there's a security system for that kind of mail and so on. So not yet, but not necessarily not never. Kamala Harris has said nothing, and ABC News issued a very troubling denial that was basically in response to all these specific charges. It was, we followed the rules of the debate. The rules of the debate did not allow us to give questions in advance. Ignored all the specific allegations.
Exactly.
They agreed with Kamala Harris's team that they wouldn't bring up Biden's mental acuity. They wouldn't bring up her tenure as Attorney General in California. They wouldn't bring up her troubling brother-in-law who was inside the DOJ settling cases allegedly just to dole out favors to Democrat activists on the other side, cases the DOJ could have won, among other problematic things. And this affidavit, it could be fake. I want people to know that. But such as it is, it alleges that this person supposedly has tapes. Now, in attempting to debunk this story, the Daily Beast came out and said that Gateway Pundit, which is a right-wing blog or website, that Gateway Pundit actually said, this thing looks like an obvious hoax to us. We're not touching it. And I confess to you, when I saw that, I thought, oh, wow, that's pretty extraordinary, because Gateway, they've gotten ahead of their skis on a couple of stories. We went back and checked. What Gateway Pundit said was an obvious hoax was a report over the weekend that this alleged whistleblower, if he exists, had been killed in a car crash. That's what Gateway Pundit says was an obvious hoax and that they weren't going to touch. They did not say the affidavit is an obvious hoax. And we continue to have Bill Ackman, billionaire investor, calling for the SEC to now investigate this publicly traded company, Disney, which owns ABC, demanding Bob Iger, the chairman of Disney, respond to these allegations. And we continue to look at our watches to see if this person really exists when he or she is going to drop these alleged tapes to back it up. So what do you make of the story?
Well, look, I can't speak to the truthiness, as they say, of all of this, but, I read the document, I read the affidavit, and the guy claims that he's worked at ABC for 10 years. A lot of it does feel like it is legit, but you're right, we shouldn't get ahead of ourselves on this. But so if we remove the specifics for a second, just think about what we all saw at the debate. When Kamala repeatedly lied about some of the things that I mentioned earlier, even very fine people would be the easiest one. If you were lying on a debate stage and you felt that people were going to fact check you, you'd have to be a little craftier about your lies. But she knew she could just rattle off lie after lie after lie and not be challenged. So that in and of itself would show you she kind of was tipped off that she was not going to be challenged. It doesn't mean that someone walked up to her from ABC and was like, Ms. Harris, we're not going to check you on any of this stuff. But there's subtle ways that some of the messaging could come across, because otherwise you would never be able to lie the way that she lied. So in this instance, because we don't have all of the facts, I would say the proof is in the pudding of everything we saw. And I think objectively, anyone watching that would have seen that clearly they were on the side of Kamala Harris. And every time Donald Trump said something, we discussed this on my show last week, Megyn, not only did they fact check him, but sometimes they weren't even correct in their fact checking. So
we needed fact checking of the fact checking.
Right, exactly.
Well, now there is the person who broke this story on X goes by the label Black Insurrectionist. And we went back through his tweets because we were not familiar with this account. I'm now following it. This does not sound like some loon. This guy's posts, actually, some of them are pretty charming. He talked about how he went back and he watched the whole Little House on the Prairie series. Right on, Black Insurrectionist. Love it myself. Anyway, he doesn't seem like, some nut job at all. And now he's actually posting really interesting stories about Kamala Harris's tenure as AG and why that potentially would have been something she would have asked them to steer clear of at the debate. You and I can talk about that in 1 minute, but I just want to stay on the whistleblower story for a second. somebody was asking this guy, he's not the whistleblower, to make clear, he's the one who broke the story and posted the affidavit of this alleged whistleblower. But now somebody said, what else can you do? Like, you got to get the tapes out, get something out. And he said, look, I've done all I can do. And then he said, I do believe there might be a congressional investigation now. And I think he's basing that on the appearance of Representative Dan Muser, representative from Pennsylvania, who appeared on Fox Business. And he's on the House Small Business Committee, which is kind of interesting. I guess that's why he was on Fox Business. But listen to what he said.
Fortunately, we now have a whistleblower, and I'm going to tell you something, Maria. We're gonna do what we can to bring ABC in and have them answer some questions, and as well as have this whistleblower and see what's going on. We need to find out what the truth is. And the thing is this: we all saw it. We actually don't need a hearing to know what we saw.
Now it's getting interesting. Now we might actually have a hearing with subpoena power.
Right. So he actually sort of reiterated what my point was, which is we all saw something. So look, hopefully they will uncover the facts. Hopefully, if we now find out that there were memos or there were phone calls or text messages or whatever, it would be nice to have all of that information. But as people know, when they do these congressional hearings, it's very rare that someone ever gets fired or punished or anything else.
That's not it. Yeah. We don't care about that. I mean, I do care. Somebody should be fired if this happened. I mean, the whole news organization should close if this happened. Let's just make clear. If this affidavit actually turns out to be true, and that's a big if, that organization should close. It should shutter. No, I mean, it cannot continue existing if the rot is that bad. If you cheated on a presidential debate like this, you gave sample questions, that was another allegation. You agreed that you wouldn't go there on 3 extremely controversial things about one candidate. You negotiated private terms that would help her and potentially hurt the other guy without the other guy on the call or his reps. You're effed. This is monumental in its size, if true, but it could all be a troll and made up. So that's why none of us want to really get out there on this until we hear tapes and actually see what's happening. This is why it would be great to have a congressional investigation. But the whole point is not to get somebody fired. It's to get the whistleblower in with cover where he can't be fired and he can tell his story with some blanket of protection.
Sure. So of course, it's not about firing one person or something. Of course, we want to uncover the truth. And then again, hopefully all it does is shine, I would say, a brighter light on what we all saw. Because whether we get to the bottom of it or not, we all know what we saw. And what we saw was an absolute farce. And I think you had some choice language last week on the moderators themselves. And it's like that. So we all know that. So focusing on that again and getting people to really, really understand what's going on here. Most Americans, putting aside like the most partisan whack jobs on both sides, most of us, regardless of whether you know who you want to vote for or not, we do want to see an honest debate. Like, we would like to hear them actually argue these things out. We all mostly get that the scale has been tilted one way for a while, but if it's so absolutely blatant and that's fully brought to light, maybe that does change the equation in the country.
I just want the audience to know, there is a principle in journalism where you don't agree to not bring something up. The most you're supposed to assure somebody is, I'll take that into consideration, right? I'll take it into consideration. Like, maybe your interests don't lie in the thing the person's like, please don't ask me about my DWI arrest when I was, 22, and you're talking to a 62-year-old, Senate candidate. That can happen where you're like, who gives a shit, whatever, that can happen. But an assurance at a presidential debate that you will entirely avoid not 1, not 2, but 3 massive problematic areas for one candidate. And the number 1 is the sitting president's mental acuity that this candidate now has been accused of covering up. I mean, I'm just saying it could be bullshit, but if that's in any way true, it is a career-ending agreement in multiple careers, because the person who made the agreement would have to be fired and never work in journalism again. And any anchor who then did that, because you'd have to tell the anchors. You can't ask. We will not be asking about Joe Biden's mental acuity. I can't think that these two would have had, the thought to go after her brother-in-law, even though that wasn't even in the New York Times. Mm-hmm. Maybe they would have asked about her time as AG, because there's a lot of controversy about it. But for sure, the president's mental acuity would have been among the possible topics. And so you would have to tell the anchors, we're not going there, and then explain why. So in any event, it would be a massive cascade of firings and job losses and so on. It's one of the reasons why it just seems so incredible, because why would these journalists take such a risk? They could just help her the old-fashioned way, like what we saw with our eyes. You know how much my family and I love our dogs. Yes, even sweet Strudwick. I can't even imagine life without them. They've got a great life. They're lucky. But some dogs aren't. And that's why I'm so glad to tell you about Delta Rescue. It's the largest no-kill, care-for-life animal sanctuary in the world. They've rescued thousands of dogs, plus cats and horses too. They provide all of these animals with shelter, safety, and most of all, love. And they've been doing it now for more than 45 years. Delta Rescue relies solely on contributions, and giving can bring tax benefits too. Speak with your estate planner about how you can grow your estate while helping animals in need. Check out the estate planning tab on their website to learn more. We love our Thunder and Strudwick, but we would like other dogs who need love to find it too. Visit deltarescue.org today to learn more. That's deltarescue.org. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.